I never thought saying no could bring cops to my doorstep, but there I was standing in my driveway watching flashing lights bounce off my car because I refused to lend it to my neighbor, all over a driving test. And the best part, she had no idea I had the state attorney on speed dial. It started like any other calm Tuesday morning, quiet, peaceful, almost boring. I was sipping my coffee, scrolling through emails, thinking about maybe going for a walk later. Then my phone buzzed, and that was the moment everything started spiraling downhill. The name on the screen made my stomach drop. Karen Hollister. If you've ever lived in a neighborhood with an HOA, you already know her type. Perfectly pressed floral dress clipboard, always in hand, walking around reminding everyone that the rules are there for a reason. She ran Maple Grove Estates like a self-proclaimed queen, and the rest of us were her peasants. Her text popped up cheerful, too cheerful. "Hey, could I borrow your car for my son's driving test today, just for an hour?" At first I thought she was joking. My car, the same car she'd complained was too shiny for the HOA's aesthetic, the same woman who once borrowed my blender and returned it cracked 3 weeks later. I blinked at the message, took a slow sip of coffee, and typed back, "Sorry, Karen, I don't lend my car out." I figured that was the end of it. But with Karen, the word no wasn't a boundary, it was a challenge. Seconds later, my phone pinged again. "If you don't let me use your car, I'll call the police. You're being uncooperative." I literally laughed out loud. The police? Over a car loan? She couldn't be serious. I was wrong. The phone rang. Her voice cut through like nails on glass. "You're refusing to help. That's unacceptable behavior in this community. You have a civic duty to assist your neighbors." I almost choked on my coffee. "Karen, there's no law that says I have to hand over my car to you," I said, trying to stay calm. But she kept going, ranting about how I was not a team player, that I'd regret this. When I hung up, I thought that was the end. Again, I underestimated her. 15 minutes later, I heard sirens. When I looked out the window there were 2 police officers walking up my driveway with Karen standing behind them, arms crossed, that smug look plastered across her face. She looked like she'd already won. I opened the door with the calmest smile I could muster. "Morning, officers," I said. "How can I help you?" Karen jumped in before they could speak. "She's refusing to let me borrow her car. My son's driving test is today, and she's deliberately ruining it." The officers blinked, clearly confused. One of them turned to me, trying not to laugh. "Ma'am, is that true?" I nodded. "Yes, officer. She asked for my car. I said no." I showed them her texts, her threats, everything. As they read the messages, I saw their faces shift from polite confusion to quiet disbelief. Karen's voice went up an octave. "She can't do that. She's supposed to help her neighbors." The taller officer sighed. "Ma'am, it's her private vehicle. She doesn't have to lend it to anyone." Karen froze, mouth slightly open, as if the words didn't compute. That's when I said with a perfectly calm smile, "Oh, by the way, I've already spoken with the state attorney's office. They're reviewing this matter." Her expression cracked. It was like watching a statue crumble in real time. For once, she had no words. The officers politely wrapped things up, reminding her not to make false complaints. She stormed off red-faced, muttering under her breath. I closed my door, exhaled, and thought that was the end of it. But if you've ever dealt with a true Karen, you know they don't quit when they lose. They double down. By afternoon, I started getting messages from neighbors. Screenshots of Facebook posts from the HOA group. Karen had gone public. She wrote this long, dramatic post about a heartless neighbor who crushed a young boy's dreams and refused to lend a simple helping hand. No names, but everyone knew who she meant. Part of me wanted to reply to expose her lies, but I didn't. Instead, I documented everything: screenshots, timestamps, comments. I knew if she kept pushing, she'd cross a line she couldn't come back from. And she did. Later that evening, I got a call from a local reporter. "Hi, this is Megan from Channel 7 News. We've been told there's some tension in your neighborhood regarding a driving test incident." I closed my eyes. Karen had actually called the media. I thanked the reporter politely and declined to comment. The calmer I stayed, the worse Karen would look. That same night, my phone buzzed again. This time it was from Mark, the assistant at the state attorney's office. I'd kept him updated, and he told me they were officially monitoring the situation. "She keeps this up, It becomes harassment, he said. Keep everything. Every text, every post. And I did. The next morning, just as I was starting to feel the storm might pass, I heard a knock at the door. I peeked through the window and froze. The police were back. But this time they weren't alone. Standing beside them was Mark in a dark suit, calm and unreadable. I opened the door, greeted them politely. Karen was already there. I could hear her voice before I even saw her. There she is. That's her. She's been spreading lies about me, trying to ruin my reputation. Mark stepped forward, holding a folder. Mrs. Hollister, before we continue, I'd like to show you something. He opened it, page after page of printed screenshots, her posts, her texts, her threats, all neatly documented and dated. Her face went pale. Wait, this isn't fair. She's twisting things. Mark's voice was steady. Everything here is your own words, Mrs. Hollister. You've made repeated false claims, harassed your neighbor, and misused community channels. One more act like this, and it becomes a criminal case. Karen's mouth opened, but nothing came out. She looked between me, the officers, and the folder, searching for someone to back her up. No one did. Even the officers stood silently, arms folded. I didn't say a word. I didn't need to. My silence was louder than anything she could have screamed. Her voice cracked. I just wanted my son to take his test. Mark shook his head. And now you've endangered your position as HOA president. Consider this your final warning. That hit her harder than anything else. The power she loved so much, the authority she wielded over everyone, was slipping through her fingers. She backed away, mumbling something under her breath, then turned and walked off. When the door finally closed behind her, I felt the weight lift off my chest. The air felt lighter, quieter. You'd think I'd feel triumphant, but I didn't. I just felt relieved. For days, Karen stayed quiet. Eventually, word spread that she'd been asked to step down from the HOA board to focus on personal matters, which was the polite way of saying she'd embarrassed herself beyond repair. I still see her sometimes walking past my house, avoiding eye contact. She doesn't speak to me anymore, and that's perfectly fine, because that whole ordeal taught me something important, something I didn't realize until it was over. There was a moment somewhere in the middle of it all when I almost broke, when everyone seemed to believe her version of the story, when the silence from my neighbors felt like judgment. I remember sitting at my kitchen table thinking, maybe I am the problem. Maybe I should have just said yes. But then I remembered every time I'd let someone like her push past my boundaries, before every time I'd stayed quiet just to keep the peace. And I realized peace built on silence isn't peace at all. It's surrender. So I stood my ground. Not to win, but to stop losing myself. In the end, Karen didn't get my car. She got a reality check, and I got my peace back. Sometimes the loudest revenge is quiet, the kind that doesn't need to shout to be heard.